Man, this was such a painfully average Bond movie that had so much potential. Ugh, let's get to the review. Welcome back to my channel. This is Let's Be Real with Brad. I talk about movies, TV shows, and do all sorts of fun and exciting videos on the channel. If this is your first time, consider hitting that subscribe button and dropping a like, as I would gladly appreciate it. We are back with our weekly Bond review as we talk about the second Pierce Brosnan film with Tomorrow Never Dies. Tomorrow Never Dies is a 1997 spy film that is the 18th film Eon series. It is directed by Roger Spottiswoode, which would be the only film he would direct. Unfortunately, this film is a mixed bag for me, as I really wanted to enjoy this after the massive success of the previous movie GoldenEye. This is because the film was rushed into production trying to capitalize on the success of GoldenEye. This makes a lot of sense considering this is the most expensive Bond film up to this point, with it costing $177.6 million adjusted for inflation. The action moments are great, along with a memorable villain, but everything else feels like everything we have already done in such a meh way. So let's dive right into this review, starting with the acting. Pierce Brosnan is back again as James Bond, with doing a stable job this time around. He does a fine job in this one, but you can already see the difference in performance from the first one, where he was truly spectacular. I think he took a little bit of a back seat in this one. Michelle Yeoh, who plays Wai Lin, is incredible in the film, being a fantastic Bond girl. Yeoh performs all of her stunts in the movie, which automatically makes her such a badass. She is an excellent help to Bond that can still be sexy and kicks so much butt. There were talks that she would get her own spin-off series, which would have been so awesome. Jonathan Pryce, who plays the villain of the film, Elliot Carver, is a memorable villain. He is a power-hungry businessman who is beyond selfish, that he will do whatever it takes to please himself. He has some terrific monologues sprinkled throughout, which makes him an entertaining character. Unfortunately, he isn't very menacing because he's only the man behind the scenes, but the character's performance and writing makes him stand out among other Bond villains. The action scenes are very hit or miss in this one, which can be almost as equally as good as the last film. There is a load of action in this one, especially with an incredible car chase sequence in a parking garage that was exciting and thrilling. The hand-to-hand combat scenes all look great because Brosnan and Yeoh do perform many stunts. I was never bored with the action, which makes this a fun, enjoyable watch. However, the action scenes can go on for a bit too long, which too many generic gunfire scenes later in the film. The visual effects are outstanding, with the most CGI in a Bond film up to this point. Unfortunately, some CGI hasn't aged well, looking like a PS2 video game, but there are still many awe-inspiring looking effects that sometimes even look seamless to this day. It isn't as good as GoldenEye, only because it has more old CGI. The gadgets in this one are very cool, having much more of a presence than in the last film. This is because there were some complaints he didn't use many gadgets in that film. I didn't think it hurt that film as well as having so many devices in this one. The direction is quite good, with having fantastic looking action sequences that you could always tell what is happening. The editing is also quite substantial, which has been heavily improved as the series has gone along. The sound design is fantastic, as you would expect out of a James Bond film, with tons of explosions, gunfire, car chases, and so much more. It all sounds so believable as it explodes through the speakers while watching. This comes to life if you have this movie cranked, as you should, for a Bond movie. The music is quite useful in improving from the previous film, with David Arnold doing the score. The filmmakers wanted to get legendary Bond composer John Barry back on board, but Barry recommended Arnold. This turned out to be a great pick because his score sounds very reminiscent of the classic James Bond music, but in a modernized fashion. It is perfect for the new generation of Bond fans and the ones who grew up with them. It added a whole lot to the action scenes, making them feel less generic than they already were. However, this movie does have a few negatives, starting with the story. This feels like an average Bond movie with all the same formulaic elements we would expect from a Bond film. I never found myself getting invested in the story, a massive bummer when the past 3 Bond films have had great stories. I have ultimately forgotten most of the story as I'm recording this video. The title song, Tomorrow Never Dies by Sheryl Crow, is very dull and underwhelming. It is one of the most boring Bond title songs up to this point that felt forced, and simply because they want a big name like Sheryl Crow in the film. The end credits song, composed by Arnold and performed by Katie Lang, called Surrender, is such a better song, as I wished it was the one used as the title song. With the story being very dull and not very exciting, so are many parts of the movie. The pacing is relatively slow in the second act of the film. That was a big shock considering how good GoldenEye was. When the action scenes came on, the movie was so entertaining and fun to watch. The third act battle scene was quite average. I felt no tension or engagement during this section, which was very disappointing. Overall, this is an average Bond film that at times felt very reminiscent of all the significant aspects of GoldenEye, with great action, visual effects, and modernizing the Bond series, but falls short with a rush production of a bad story and just feeling like not a lot of effort went into making this movie stand out. I could definitely watch this movie again, but not anytime soon. I'm giving Tomorrow Never Dies a 5 out of 10. So let me know down below if you have seen Tomorrow Never Dies. If you have, where do you rank it in your James Bond film rankings? Next week, we will be reviewing the third Pierce Brosnan film with The World Is Not Enough. So be sure to check it out before next week's review. As always, I will see you all in the next video.